R, we are going to read Alice in Wonderland, retold by Janet Rickety. Alice sat by her sister under a tree, tired of having nothing to do. Her sister was reading a book, but when Alice peeked at it, the book didn't look very interesting to her. "Oh, what use is a book without any pictures?" Alice asked herself. The hot day made her feel very sleepy. As she leaned back, suddenly a white rabbit, dressed in his finest clothes, ran by. The rabbit stopped and pulled a watch out of his vest pocket. He cried, oh dear, I shall be too late." Then he raced on. This seemed very curious to Alice, so she raced after him. The rabbit ran across a field and popped through a hole in a tree. Without thinking twice, Alice popped in after him. She found herself falling down a long tunnel. "How curious," Alice said, for she was drifting down quite slowly. As she fell, she saw all sorts of funny things go by. "I wonder if I shall fall right through the earth," she said. Then thump! Alice tumbled to a stop on a pile of straw. She jumped up and saw the white rabbit hopping down a long hallway. "Oh, wait!" she called, but the rabbit just said, "Oh, my ears and my whiskers. How late is it getting?" And off he went. Look at her going through all the things. She's through the hole. Alice followed and found herself in a large room full of doors. All of them were locked, but on a table Alice found a tiny gold key. It took the tiniest of doors. Alice opened the tiny door and saw a lovely garden of white roses, but Alice was too big to get through, so she closed it. How I wish I could fold up like a telescope," she said. She went back to the table and saw a small bottle with a note on it. The note said, "Drink me." How curious. I'm sure that bottle wasn't there before. Alice picked the bottle up. She checked to be sure it wasn't marked poison, and then drank it down. The next thing Alice knew, she was folding up like a telescope. Soon she was only 10 inches tall. "How lovely," she said. "Now I can go through the door." But alas, she had left the key on top of the table. Alice tried to climb up, but it was too high. "Whatever shall I do?" she said. Then she noticed a dish of cookies on the floor. Next to it was a note, and it said, "Eat me." She took a bite of a cookie. Look how small she is compared to the table and chair. The next time, Alice grew enormously tall, very tall. So tall that her head hit the ceiling. She was scared and began to cry. Her enormous, very big, tears became a river. Alice found herself shrinking, getting smaller in the water and being carried away by a river of her own tears. When she became only a few inches tall, she floated right through the keyhole of a door. In the distance, she could see the white rabbit hurrying toward her, still saying to himself, I'm late. As the white rabbit reached Alice, he stopped and looked at her angrily. "Marianne," he said, "what are you doing here? Run to my home and fetch my gloves. Quick now." Alice ran out at once. Though she knew very well that she wasn't Marianne, she found front. She hurried inside, ran upstairs, and found the gloves. As Alice was about to leave the house, she saw a little bottle near the looking glass. I'm tired of being tiny, said Alice. Maybe this will help. And then she took a drink. Alice grew and grew and grew. Soon her head was all over the ceiling. Soon her head was on the ceiling and her feet were sticking out of the windows. Look at her arms sticking out the windows and her feet. Oh, goodness. The White Rabbit returned and was surprised to see a giant creature in the house. He began throwing pebbles at Alice. The pebbles turned into small cakes. Alice rubbed one on one and began to shrink and shrink. Now I'm too small, she cried. She ran out of the house and into the woods. Shall I ever be the right size again? She asked herself. Try my mushroom, said a voice. Alice jumped in surprise and spun around. She was a funny-looking caterpillar. One side makes you taller and the other makes you smaller, said the caterpillar. Alice rubbed each side of the mushroom until she became her right size. Now to find White Rabbit again, she said. He's at the croquet match with the Queen. Of course, said the Cheshire Cat. Here's the Cheshire Cat, perched in a tree. I'll see you there. And the cat slowly disappeared, leaving only a smile behind. What a curious place, said Alice. Alice walked in and arrived at the March Hare's house in time for tea. The March Hare, the Mad Hatter, and the Dormouse all sat around a large table, sat with many places. No room, they called as Alice walked toward them. Why, is there plenty of room, said Alice. She sat down, for she was very hungry, but the March Hare dunked his watch in his tea. The Mad Hatter spoke nonsense. The Dormouse fell asleep while telling a story, and no one offered Alice any tea. So in disgust, Alice left. She wasn't happy no one gave her tea. As Alice walked on, looking for the White Rabbit, she came upon the garden with the lovely white roses, but 3 playing cardmen were painting the roses red. Why are you doing that? Asked Alice. The roses were supposed to be red, they answered. The Queen will cut off our heads if she sees them that they're white. At that moment, the Queen and her court arrived. The playing match bowed to her, but Alice did not. She stood where she was. Who is the person who does not bow to me? The Queen barked. My name is Alice. Can you play croquet? The Queen asked. Alice nodded. She was very confused. Then came along, said the Queen. Then come along, said the Queen, and she marched away, not even looking back to see if Alice was following. The croquet game was the strangest Alice had ever seen. The Queen used the pink flamingo as a mallet and the hedgehogs for a croquet ball. Throughout the game, the Queen shouted, "Off with his head," whenever anyone made her mad. Soon the Cheshire Cat appeared in a tree. Soon the Cheshire Cat came. How are you getting on? The cat asked Alice. I don't like the Queen at all, said Alice. Off with your head, shouted by the Queen, who had come up behind her. The Queen was quite angry at her, but she don't stay angry. Alice started to protest angrily, but just then a voice cried in the distance, "The trial is beginning! The trial is beginning! Come along to court!" The Queen ordered everyone around her. When they arrived at court, the Queen took charge. "Read the accusation," she commanded. The White Cat unrolled the scroll and read, the Queen of Hearts. She made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them quite away. Who's the first witness, beloved Queen? To Alice's shock, the White Rabbit pointed to Alice. Alice came forward and stood in front of the Queen. What do you know about this business? Said the Queen. Nothing, said Alice. Nothing whatever, said the Queen. Nothing whatever, said Alice. This is all of a lot of nonsense. Hold your tongue, cried the Queen. Her face was turning red with anger. She was very cross. I won't, said Alice. Off with your head, screamed the Queen. The army of cards surrounded Alice at once. At first, Alice was quite scared, but then she shouted angrily, Who cares about you? You're nothing but a pack of cards. At this, the whole pack pounced on Alice. Look at them pouncing on her. There were cards everywhere, and Alice tried to beat them off. Behind her, she could have the Cheshire Cat laughing. How are you getting on, Alice? He said. Now Alice felt like she was falling and falling, with cards all around her. Then suddenly Alice found herself lying under the tree with her head on her sister's lap. Her sister was gently brushing away some leaves that had fluttered down from the tree upon Alice's face. Wake up, Alice, her sister said. Ma, what a long sleep you've had. Oh, said Alice, sitting up, I've just had a curious dream. She told her sister all about Wonderland. When Alice finished her story, her sister kissed her gently. That surely was a curious dream. Now let's go home for our tea. It's getting late. But as the two sisters walked off, neither of them noticed a white rabbit, dressed in his finest clothes, watching them from a hole in a tree. He put his watch in his vest pocket and hopped away. And that is Alice in Wonderland.